Hey there, I wanted to talk to you today about how to build, iterate, and scale your startup from zero to one to a couple $1 million a year in revenue. There are a few fundamental tools you want to use cognitively to help you build and scale, and I personally have taken more than a dozen startups to more than $1 million a year in revenue, more than $2 million a year in revenue, some cases more than $10 million a year in revenue. And I built a framework and a system that really help you understand how to approach the problem of taking a idea you have, a technology you built, something you have crafted, and make it into an actual building and scaling business. So first, kind of useful thing for you to keep in mind, if you don't already know this, is a pretty common model for generating revenue called a revenue funnel. The idea here is you have to find people, convince them there's something worth buying, make them buy, and then hopefully keep them around for a while. And if you think of each stage of how a person moves through that funnel, at the very beginning you have to tell somebody you exist. They have no idea who you are. They're a stranger. After you have gotten them to come to a website or a video or something you created to help inform them about your business, they become a visitor. Once you capture some information about them, right, their email address, their phone number, any way you can reach out to them and message them, they become a lead. And finally, when you convince that lead to give you money, they become a customer. So this funnel is a really common, like anybody who's been to business school knows this. I don't actually like funnels too much as a way to describe revenue. I like to think of revenue as a flywheel or as a cycle. It's like the circle never ends, right? And so you think about, back in this chart, right, attract, convert, close, and delight. It ends up being attract, convert, and then close and delight combine. They become retain, and they all pivot around this hub called growth. And the idea here is attract still is bringing strangers into your business, right? Convert is convincing them to take action and actually purchase. And then after you have gotten them to purchase, you have to find a way to extract value from them over the long term. This all pivots around the idea of regular experimentation, using systems and knowledge and data to take what is a idea of revenue, iterate through it, improve it, and build something that is dependable and scalable over time. Now each of these three stages contains in them many individual substages, and you really want to know how to use these substages to your advantage, because if you just look at this as one monolithic thing, you'll end up missing out on many of the details you need to create a flywheel that actually functions for you. So at the very first, you want to think about, in the attraction phase, your very first exposure, right? What makes somebody discover you for the first time? And if you visit my blog at crowdtamers.com/blog, we talk a lot about top of funnel ways to generate interest, right? And top of funnel is kind of industry standard, even though I don't like funnels so much, right? How do I get people at the very beginning of their journey to discover me? Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Google ads, content marketing, video marketing. There are a number of ways to do this, and you have to test and find the right way to generate exposure for you. Each of these little black dots here represents a point where somebody needs to make a decision to move further down this flywheel to the next stage of their discovery process for you. So your exposure, usually the first exposure is not what's going to drive a visit to your site or a visit to your property. You'll need to create several different ways for people to discover about you. You need to find several different channels to hit them up in. I frequently start with paid media, end up using channels like Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and Google all together to find somebody, retarget that somebody, show them several impressions about your brand and about your message, and then one of them will spark that moment where they come and check you out. Now, once they've checked you out and they've visited your property, that all you've got is a couple seconds of their time. And you have to find a way on that property, right? A landing page, your home page, a lead gen magnet like a white paper or something, to convince them to do more than just look at it and go, and close the browser. And when you've made them take that decision to go, okay, I'll bite, now they are considering at least something about you, right? They might be considering buying your product. They might just be considering you as a resource of knowledge that is useful. whatever the journey it is you're trying to make them reach this point, those are three very separate asks, right? The first ask is they don't have to do much about it. They just discover you. But from there to visit, I've got maybe a second, right? To get somebody who sees the ad to go, okay, what's this about? And then look at it for a few moments. And then once they've seen me for a few moments, to generate that click, bring them to my property. Once they're visiting there, I have to make that next ask, right? Well, how much do I trust these guys? Are they really worth giving my email address, my phone number, my company details to? Is the value of what you're going to give me enough for the ask you're making? Okay. They got past consideration phase. You need to think about at this point, right? Top of the funnel is the most crucial part of your discovery process because the messaging you use here needs to spread throughout the entirety of the rest of your marketing effort. So right now is the moment to fill your brain with lessons, to learn things, to discover. You should test many different messages, super different messages. You should test many different audiences, super different audiences. Because what you will discover is some of these audiences do better, some of them do worse, some of these messages do better, some of them do worse. And once you have found the best intersection of audience and message together, that leads them through attract and visit and consider, then you'll be ready to start making the rest of your marketing more performative. But if you immediately focus on middle of the funnel or bottom of the funnel, or middle of the flywheel, bottom of the flywheel, and you don't really nail the top of that journey, you're going to have a very, very hard time building a revenue system that works because you can't find enough people at the very top of this. And you haven't yet refined your messaging to the people who are most likely to actually take some kind of action. So once you've got them considering you, they've given you their information, and then you want them to actually buy, right? And this is when they convert into actual paid customer. This is the next stage of the journey. Everything up until then is all in the attraction and consideration area of your funnel. Now once they've bought, they become a customer, right? But just because they've given you money doesn't mean they're using you. Whether you're an agency, whether you're a SaaS platform, whether you're an e-commerce sale, right? Anything you have, once somebody buys it, you want them to actually start using it and find utility in it. You need to have a way to make sure from the very first moment they are being taken through a path that ends with successfully using your product and loving it. And onboarding starts effectively on your very first landing page, on your very first real brand consideration, where you're setting expectations, and it leads through from there. And as you onboard people, it principally comes after buy, because once they buy is when you really want to make sure you're having them find ways to understand the right way to use you and extract value out of you. From onboarding then into actual proper full-time use is when they find that you are sticky enough, whether it is they want to come back and buy from your store again because they love the t-shirt that you sold them, or whether it is your SaaS platform is solving the problems they have so well that they've found other people they've recommended this to. You want to get people in that use phase to understand what problem you solve, how you solve it for them, and quickly get to the magic minute where they have the relief of the pain that they came to you to solve. And then you want to get them to retain. You want to have them stay around. It can mean anything from they're paying for the next month in their MRR subscription, all the way to they are buying from your store again because they had a good experience buying one screwdriver and now they need to buy 2 more. Whatever it is, getting that re-up is crucial because it's way easier to sell a customer the second time than it is to sell them the first time if they had a good experience. And so the retain area here is all about making sure from the moment they give your money to the moment you're going to ask for their money again, they are consistently impressed with your service, delighted with your product, and really find that you provide more value than they're paying for what they got. Upsell is the next stage after you've retained them, right? If you've got somebody paying you $100 a month for your subscription, can you get them to pay you $500 a month or $5,000 a month? That upsell is once they are so confident in the value you've already provided that they know that the next time you ask them for more money, they'll give value then too. And again, this falls into, right, re-up, you've come back, you found this is valuable, cool. Upsell or cross-sell is a bit different than saying the value you had is good. You have to convince them the value that they could have is even better. And so you have to show new features, discuss ways that they could be having a better life, a better job, a better whatever because of the service you're providing. And then finally, once you've got somebody regularly giving you money and somebody who's buying even more than they had originally anticipated buying because they know there's more value to be had from what you're offering, you want to make them so happy about what you're doing that they share with other people. Then once they share with other people, they drive a top-of-funnel exposure for somebody else. And it begins the cycle again, right? And the growth hub in the middle is every single little black dot here, every single stage along the journey. You are experimenting relentlessly to continue to optimize what you have built. Now this cycle has a team that naturally fits inside there, right? Attract is your marketing team. Sales tends to be who drives the conversions, unless you're a self-service sale, in which case marketing and sales kind of blend together here into revenue. Then finally, after they have purchased from you, there's customer success, ways to make sure people are not just customer service, you're not just solving problems, you're making sure that people are successful using what you have. And so it's more proactive. It's saying, how can I convince you, not just that I fixed your bug or I solved your implementation problems, how do I convince you to stick around, pay more, get other people to come into our little association together, right? Upsell and cross-sell. And then all this rotates around the hub of product. Product needs to be what drives so many of your experiments to make sure that as you have a new idea, whether it's on the marketing side or on the feature side, you have a way of folding all into this flywheel and using it to drive value all throughout your organization. This can be a tough one. Frequently you have in a meeting the highest paid person's opinion in the room goes, well, there was this one time I saw a thing, and this is what we should do now. One of the reasons why CrowdTamer's $1 million funnel and go-to-market approaches are built the way they are is because they gather thousands of points of data to help for every step of the decision-making process in top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel, lead gen and demand gen. It is important you don't make big changes in product, big changes in marketing, big changes in messaging based on someone's opinion, based on that one user story, based on, hey, that one interview we did. Like, gather many sources of data before you make any big decision, right? Small decisions, ones that are easily changed and reverted, sure, why not? You have one really compelling user story about, hey, this is actually our best feature. Let's try an ad campaign real quick, right? Put a couple $100 behind it, see if it actually works. That's simple. But if it's build a new feature, spend 5 months in dev trying to make this new thing work, don't do that off of an anecdote. Make sure you have data to drive that decision-making process. Iteration is slow. Iteration is sometimes painful. Iteration is a back and forth of this got better, now it got worse, now it's better again. Oh no, this is real bad, let's revert. And you have to be in this for the long haul, right? Applying just one-time effort, working really hard for a week, and then being like, why didn't everything change? Isn't what's going to take you from 0 to $2 million and more in revenue. It is the continual time and energy spent saying, let's make many small bets. Let's every week try 2 or 3 things and see which ones work and build upon those. That's what's crucial to this process. If you can't stand being wrong a whole lot, well, 1, marketing probably isn't to you, but 2, entrepreneurship surely is not. So as you, founder, builder, creator, marketer, whatever you may be, are looking at taking a data-based approach and a growth-based approach to improving your marketing systems to generate $1 million or more in revenue, keep in mind, you've got to stick with the grind. It doesn't happen in 1 month. It may not even happen in 3. But eventually you'll see a change in the direction of how things are trending on your growth, and you'll know that all the hard work is starting to pay off. There are 3 key things I like to think of for growth, and the last one is more for SaaS companies than the first 2. One is how many impressions do you have on your ads or your content or your top of funnel attract part of your flywheel, right? And how many of those result in visits? Generally across the board, less than 2% conversion from a first impression to a visit means something's wrong. I would go investigate, see how I can improve it. The next one is hard to calculate, particularly for early stage startups. CAC is cost to acquire a customer, and ARPU is average revenue per user. Now, in early stages of a company, these are both guesses, right? CAC is also really hairy to calculate because frequently you can say I spent $170 to get this lead to sign up and just pure ad spend, but you're not baking in the other costs like the salary of the marketers who did this and the lights for the office and the bandwidth and the insurance and everything. A quick rule I use just to help understand if these ad campaigns are even worth it is if you aren't generating 3 times the value of a user over the cost of acquiring that user, you're probably losing money. And average revenue per user, I mean, a real simple way you do this before you know much about it, take your monthly revenue from a user and multiply it by 6. Assume you might have them around for 6 months. You'll know more the longer you have your business in place. Maybe you only have them for 1 month. Maybe you're e-commerce. It's a one-time deal. Maybe it's you have them around for 4 years. Cool. But if you're at the very, very beginning, right, that simple math, my revenue for a month for this user times 6 better be 3 times what my cost to acquire them was. Otherwise, I'm in trouble. And then weekly cohort conversion churn is just, hey, out of all the leads I brought in on the first week of September, how many of them converted into paying customers? And then over time, how many of the customers who first came and visited the first week of September end up churning? Right? That tells you long-term health of, am I promising my customers the right thing when they sign up? Do they stick around? Of my experiments, which ones brought me customers who maybe churned real fast? Which ones didn't? You want to have notes that kind of correlate these two things together. Some of the tools you'll want to use for data, right? These are kind of industry leading tools for this. There are many other competitors there, but Google Analytics is like the default choice for website flow and tracking. I sometimes use Matomo, or you have other software out there that lets you report the same information. Clearbit gives you information on leads and kind of enriches any data you may have from an email address. Segment can glue everything together, so you don't have to have a number of different requests happening on your back end or your front end that a developer has to write. Segment gives you one single JavaScript code, and then it takes care of everything on the back end. Profitwell helps a lot if you're a recurring revenue company with billing and tracking your information for churn and renewals and upsells and downgrades. And then HubSpot's a pretty good CRM. I've used it for, I think, 13, 14 years, and they have a really good startup offer for just the CRM part of things. They can get pricey as you scale, but not a bad place to start. So things to keep in mind here to wrap up as we're talking about growth and building and making your startup succeed to $2 million or more a year. It's hard, right? And you have to have the resilience to be wrong 10 times in a row and feel like you're a giant failure, and then suddenly you're right and you've 10x'd your revenue. If you don't have that resilience in to keep trying things until you find the right one, it's very hard going for you indeed. Failure isn't an end state. Failure is an intermediate destination on the way to success. Now, many companies run out of time or money or effort or care long before they get past the failure. That's why 90% of businesses never make $1 million. But if you are able to learn enough and move fast enough, then failure will inevitably take you towards success someday. Just a matter of, can you last it out long enough to get there? It's hard to grow, and you fail a whole lot. And the only way this ever works is if you're honest with yourself, with your team members, with your bosses, with your individual contributors who you manage. Like, all of these things only work if there isn't a practice of deceit in place. If you lie about any of the numbers, you're done. That's it. you can't grow from there, because you can only make decisions and only learn from failing if you were honest about why you failed and you know the actual numbers of that fail and you're ready to move forward from there. So this is it. These 3 major parts of a flywheel, all built around the practice of growth and experimentation, have worked for me a dozen times, right? In varying forms. I have refined this over 10, 15 years to build a system that works really well for me. And I have yet to see it not work for somebody else if they put in the work, have the resilient mindset, and can push past all the failures to make it to success. That's the go-to-market system. That's how you build a machine to help your startup grow and scale. Hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks so much.